Hey everybody, for this episode of Coins in History, we have a 1947 1 peso coin from the Philippines. This coin is 90% silver and was designed by Laura Gardin Fraser. The obverse features the coat of arms of the Republic of the Philippines. Above it the name of the country, and below it the year 1947 and the denomination value, 1 peso. Also at the bottom is a small S mint mark indicating that the coin was minted in San Francisco, California. The reverse features a portrait of five-star General Douglas MacArthur facing right. The inscription says, "Defender and Liberator, General Douglas MacArthur, the Philippines." Now we will begin to discuss the year under the spotlight in this video, 1947. Unlike many of my videos which focus on a period of great turmoil, we will soon learn that this was somewhat of a year of increased stability for the country. However, before we can jump right into the year in question, it is necessary to provide a little bit of background history. In 1941, at the height of the Second World War, just 10 hours after the attacks on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, Japan began its invasion and occupation of the islands of the Philippines, which had been a territory of the United States since 1907. The next year, U.S. forces left, with MacArthur swearing that he would come back. 3 years later, in 1944, he kept his promise. On October 20th, he issued a radio statement stating, "The people of the Philippines, I have returned." The next year, his forces invaded the largest island of Luzon, shortly after the American troops recaptured the capital of Manila, which effectively put an end to the struggle despite small skirmishes with Japanese who still occupied small parts of the country until Japan's eventual surrender. In 1946, 1 year after the end of the war, the United States gave Philippines independence. Finally, now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can fast forward back to 1947. During this year, His Excellency Manuel Roxas served as the first president of the Third Republic of the Philippines. He was a liberal with support of MacArthur, but his presidency was marred by corruption and controversy. His foreign policy, for instance, is known to have been highly controlled by MacArthur and American influences. For example, although he was able to obtain rehabilitation funds, he also conceded dozens of military bases to the United States. This agreement also included trade restrictions and a policy which gave special privileges to U.S. owners and investors. Surprisingly, this type of influence is not as unpopular as we might think. On March 11th, the nation voted in a referendum to change the Constitution called the Parity Amendment. The result was that it gave U.S. citizens the right to dispose of and utilize the nation's natural resources at will. Despite all the exploitation, on October 16th, the UK handed over control of several islands, including the Turtle Islands. Roxas was also known for his role in violently suppressing the Huck Rebellion, a minority farmer class. All of this was going on. For better or worse, Roxas did not live long enough to attempt to deal with most of the issues plaguing his country. He died of a heart attack the next year, just 2 years into his 4-year term, and was succeeded by his vice president, Elpidio Quirino. Apart from the history, this year was also notable for a few famous births. These include director Johnny Monahan, also known as Mr. M, and TV evangelist Eli Soriano, known as BES or Brother Eli. Additionally, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, longtime politician and 14th president of the Philippines, Josie Natori, famous Filipino-American fashion designer, Danny Florencio, or Daredevil Danny, a basketball player in the Filipino Basketball Hall of Fame, and finally we have guitarist for Juan de la Cruz band, Pepe Smith. This is Coins in History.